yesterday when I was moderating, and I tried to hit the record button and I didn't have the power to do that. So
I also will give you like the 5-minute warning. We go
Perfect.
until the top of the hour.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine. There's my lovely co-host.
Yeah, sorry, I snuck off to go get a drink. Speaking of
Totally
quarantine.
fair.
Yeah.
Seemed a wise choice.
Catriona, I'm reading a series of books that I think you would find very entertaining.
Yeah.
By Amanda Lee, the Charlie Rhodes mystery.
Oh.
They're kind of, the whole, I know you like reading the modern witches and
Bluff mysteries, yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit of romance. They're funny. I find I laugh out loud. And I have Kindle Unlimited, and so they're all free on my Kindle Unlimited, so I can just turn through them and not have to buy a book. So.
All right, hang on. Tell me the name again, because I'm not going to remember later.
Charlie Rhodes, Rhodes. Amanda M. Lee is the author. She writes, I've told you about the Wild Witches of the Midwest series. She writes that too.
Okay. All right, we'll save that note and look them up. Thank you. Okay. Good. Silenced the phone just in case.
All right, we'll give it a couple more minutes just to let people, transfer rooms and get a drink and all that good stuff.
I had lobby host duties, but there seems to be 3 or 4 people in there doing that. So I thought I'll just bounce over here and whatever.
Yeah. And I can probably figure out the technology. My employment tends to use Microsoft Teams, but we're using a little bit. So when I was talking about it, it's technology I use, but not as often.
Yeah. Oh, it's all good. We actually have a moderator that will, is recording it, and we'll upload that to the magic place in the sky that it has to go. And will give us a 5-minute warning, and I'll moderate, or I'll monitor the chat just to keep an eye on it. And who knows, we may only have 5 minutes of content. I don't know. We're winging it.
Well, it's neat to see we have folks from not just the West Kingdom. That's very cool. Thank you.
It is very cool.
From far lands.
And someone who gave me a geography lesson yesterday, because I don't know why I thought Ethelmark was like in the South, and then realized it's Northeast US, so they're cold too.
Have someone from my very first household is, I think, living in Ethelmark. I think. Anyway, I could have her kingdom wrong, but she is also.
What are those A kingdoms?
Well, yeah, she's in the northeast part of the U.S. Contiguous.
Yeah, that's Ethelmark. Well, all right, it is 11 after. I guess we'll get this show on the road. I am Ula. I am your co-host of this lovely discussion, and our plan is really a discussion. So, Catriona, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Catriona. I've been in the SCA in a number of positions since about 94, 95, I think it is. So I volunteered as officers and on court and a bunch of different positions, including as a couple supervisory positions. So I've had both been the lackey volunteer and also been kind of a supervising volunteer. So I'm happy to share whatever info I can from my years of various places.
Yeah.
Currently
So,
living in Owertha, which is the modern state of Alaska, for anybody who didn't know.
yeah. And I've been in the SCA for 30, I did the math the other day, 35 years, 36 years. Started in Ontario, been in the West now for 7 years, although it does not feel like that long at all. I have been everywhere, everything from, chief dog walker to event steward of 700 person event to all various event staff to all kinds of things, dishwasher to you name it, I've probably done it at some point. So we are here to talk to you about care and feeding of volunteers, because we cannot do this without volunteers. Like that's why we do this. That's why we have to be here. So my thoughts, and so Katrina and I have some brief notes, but I'm really thinking it's going to be kind of a round table and get some more input, because I'm personally always looking for more ways to thank our volunteers. But Katrina, why don't you take that first bullet point, because it's really yours.
Yeah, the first one is mine. My favorite approach is cookies. Like, generally speaking, literal cookies.
Cookies.
Cookies. So I was the principality exchequer for my principality, and any exchequer who got their report in on time, I made them cookies. And it was surprising how well that worked. Exchequerate is one of those behind the scenes offices that doesn't always get a lot of love and respect. And I think the least I could do was reward them for that kind of behind the scenes service, right? So it also kind of became a competition. Whoever my first officer to get their report in got 2 batches of cookies, and everybody else got just the 1 batch of cookies, as long as they made it in by the deadline. And if they missed the deadline, there were sometimes some, exceptions still made, and they might still get cookies. But it really did help, I think, cheer them up and make them feel appreciated. And it made me feel good that there was something I could give them to acknowledge this kind of tedious and behind the scenes work that they were doing.
Right? Yeah, cookies, like literal cookies, are brilliant. I've never actually done cookies, but I've done other, physical things, right? So I'm a big fan of praise, just a heartfelt thank you, whether that's in both in public and in private. So some people are just not comfortable with public praise. Don't force it on them, because that just ends really, really poorly. But some people really like public praise. So as an event steward, it's the, giving thank yous in court of, here's all of the people that did all the behind the scenes stuff, the people that set up the list field 2 days ago that we've already forgotten about, but we couldn't be fighting without it. And it's showing genuine appreciation and not an expectation of service, I think, is really, for me, what a lot of it boils down to. Where are we?
I think we're still in the second bullet. You're good.
Yeah. All right.
Third bullet, yeah.
So yeah, heartfelt thank you, both public and private, or your public, both, either or, whatever, but just make it genuine. One of the other things that I find really important is to facilitate the care. It's part of care and feeding is find out what your volunteers want to do, what they like to do, and help facilitate that. If you've got somebody that doesn't like to talk to people, then maybe working gate is not the best place for them, right? But maybe scrubbing dishes in the kitchen is a great place, right? So find out what your volunteer wants to do and help facilitate that. Would you take the next one?
All right. Trying to remember where we were.
Under considerations, middle of it.
Yeah. So let's see what they want to do. I'm going to hit the communicate early and often. So in line with what do they want to do, also check in on how they're doing, right? Not just, hey, what's the status on this task that you're doing, but also how are you doing? Are you uncomfortable? Did you run into a blockade? Do you need help? Some people are willing to tell you that they've got a problem, but they're not willing to reach out to to you to tell you there's a problem. You know, they'll admit it if they're asked, but they aren't gonna, you know, they think, oh, I should be able to handle this. And so they're not gonna reach out to you. But if you call them and say, hey, how's it going? You know, did you, you know, fill out that report, or did you talk to that person you needed to talk to, or, you know, whatever. If you're asking them, then they might be more responsive. They might be able to say, oh, you know, I didn't get to it because my water heater died. And so I've been dealing with mundane stuff. I haven't even dealt with this. And that helps you also make sure that whatever the project is meets its deadline, but also takes some stress off of them, lets them feel heard. And maybe there's just something that they're hung up on and they need to talk it through, and you can give them kind of guidance on, oh, you know, yeah, so-and-so is terrible about answering text messages, but if you just call them, they're going to be a whole lot more responsive, and you're going to be able to get the thing done that you needed to do. So, you know, communicating with your volunteers about where they're at, what they're having problems with, what they're feeling good about. And it kind of also works in with praise, right? Like that's a great opportunity then to be like, oh, hey, you know, great job on keeping up with this part of that. And this thing you're having trouble with, let me help you with that. So, you know, communicating is probably, you know, right there along with praise, making them feel like they're a part of, you know, they're seen and they're acknowledged and they know what's going on, and you know what they're doing. And it really helps a lot to just keep that line open.
Yeah. The lines of communication are key. And it doesn't matter if it's an office where they're in the position for, you know, multiple years, or it's heading up a facet of an event or whatever that's, you know, maybe only a couple hours, but just communicating and making sure that everybody's on the same page as to what's happening if something is falling through the cracks, you know, how can we facilitate getting that bolstered back up again. And then on the same lines is ensure timelines are adhered to. So if somebody is working a 2-hour gate shift, make sure that there's somebody to relieve that person at the end of the shift, or talk to them and say, you know what, the person who was supposed to come in after you, Kitty, the person who was supposed to come in after you is going to be 20 minutes late. Can you sit over for an extra 20 minutes, right? And in terms of offices and longer term things, again, it's a communication and making, ensure reports are in on time. Maybe don't wait until a report is past due. Reach out to your subordinates 2 weeks ahead of time and say, hey, reminder, reports are due in 2 weeks, right? I'm looking at I see several, current or former kingdom and principality officers here. So I think we've all been in some sort of variety of that, where and it goes back to communication. I personally think that the biggest way for volunteers to feel appreciated and want to come back and do more is to talk about it and communicate and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So I actually want to say a little bit about actual physical thank yous. So in addition to cookies, which are brilliant, I've done things for events staff that like the key people on big events, crown level events and stuff like that. Something that is representative of the event in a small token, a magnet, a bookmark, something for Sport Kings in Ontario, a premier fighting event. One of the first years, it was super cheesy. We made these like Fimo clay round shield magnet things. I think I still have mine somewhere. And it was just something that a couple of us got together on a Sunday afternoon, and we were drinking and crafting and made these little magnets that we gave out to like people that had put in hours, right? And it's just a fun little, and we like put the year, just like a Christmas ornament, right? It was Sport of Kings, AS, whatever it was. And in addition to literal cookies, refreshments. So like, I've seen, everything from actual cookies to other snacks, ice water or, ice bottled water for on-site events, right? One of the constables I can pronunciate is that I know keeps a cooler at gate of ice water, soda, stuff like that, right? And also always has like Oreos and M&Ms or whatever, right? Just little snacky things to help keep the the volunteers fortified.
I think
Jug of
Yeah.
homemade lemonade works well.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Homemade lemonade or iced tea,
Mhm.
especially for hot events, anything that will help keep people going, right? And it could be little things. Yeah, Claire.
I was just going to say, and you touched on it, never underestimate the power of a handwritten note. Earlier, I don't know, 5 or 6 months ago, I was feeling really just very crispy with Kingdom Chronicle stuff. I felt like people just kept kind of sniping at me. And I was like, you know what, I'm done. And then I received an email, thank you, from Henrik, you know,
Right.
who, you know, and I was like, okay, I can keep doing this. So never that handwritten acknowledgement to
Yes.
me, you know, I'm a teacher and I have a file that I call I've had a crappy day file. And when I've had a crappy day, I pull that file out because it's got all the things students have given to me over the years. Like, and I just read through that again and it reminds me why I do what I do. And
Exactly.
and I save those.
Yeah, and sometimes we need that. Absolutely. Like sometimes I'm just like, really, why am I torturing myself with this again? Like, why do I keep signing up to do this? And then I see stuff like that. Yeah, Edward, go ahead.
Decades ago, I don't even remember what I did to merit this, but I was tickled to get a wax sealed envelope through the mail, which I didn't even know they could do anymore.
Yeah.
But just sort of the little things of a thank you note for, you know, thanks for doing the thing. If you can do it, the closer to in period type you can do this, if you can manage a wax seal, it makes it a little more special. It doesn't have to be a fancy note, just, you know, hey, thank you for doing the thing. They really do mean a lot.
They do.
But
Absolutely.
you
It is
can
amazing.
elaborate on them, especially if you're sort of the artistic type or whatever.
Yeah, it is amazing what a handwritten note will do. And that's something that I always try to impress on people is it's amazing. And honestly, right now in this special time that we have, that is something that I think that a lot of people are doing more of. I have received more Christmas cards this year than I have in like the last 5 years combined, probably. And I also sent more, right? So that handwritten note is, and I'm just looking at my desk, I have postcards and cards right here with stamps. And sometimes when I see something just kind of come across Facebook or whatever, yes, you can type. I'll be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to say something to that person right now while it's in my mind and write it out and stick a stamp on it. And I may not actually get it to the post office for, 2 weeks because that's a 15-minute drive into town and I don't ever leave my house, but at least I've done the thing and eventually I'll get it in there. Wow. Oh, okay. The comments are coming in hot and fast now.
Claire and
Yes,
Lena and I
do you
were
wanna-
chatting about Awirtha got to host Kingdom Purgatorio for the first time in 16 years back in 2009. So it was I don't know how many of you are not West Kingdom. I know at least one isn't, so I'll try and do just a brief sum up. Principality is out on the edges of the kingdom, and we don't often get to host kingdom level events. And there had been one, but it had been 16 years. And so we put together a team and said, we really want to host this Purgatorio kingdom coronation up here in Awirtha, and got approved to do it. And for the lead volunteers, the person who was going to be in charge of gate, the person who was in charge of the feast, the person who was in charge of, various bits, much like the coffee mugs you mentioned. I had a friend who at the time could do glass etching, and so I contracted him to etch the event information and a really cool medieval art that a different friend had helped coordinate, helped draw. And so even the logo on the glass was a team effort, and I did that for all my lead people and for the royals who were stepping up and stepping down, and was able to give them that.
Oh, that's beautiful.
These etched glasses out as thank yous to the people who really made that work. And I no longer have that particular connection, but I have a friend now who's a potter. And if I were to do something like that again, much to, I think it was Edward's point about something that's more medieval, right? If I were to do something that big again, I'd rather contract the potter friend to do something that would be kind of a memento of the event, so that they'd have that keepsake. It'd be a good memory, but it'd also be something they could feel comfortable using at events. I love my glass, but it's a little modern. I don't take it to SCA events to use. It doesn't feel as comfortable there.
Right. Yep. And that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Things like that. And yes, there is an outlay of money involved with that. So it depends on, and you can't use SCA budget for those things because
Right.
rules and laws. Right. So, but group efforts, you can get, use your charm and charisma, talk people into helping you out and, do that. Yeah. Edward, go ahead.
Some of the other ones that are popular around here that altogether, well, the setup takes a little more, but the item itself, not so much. Minted coins as thank yous are used a lot.
Yep.
Let me see. Cast pewter.
Yep.
Pewter cast in soapstone. If you have anybody who has a talent at that, especially if it is in some relationship to what you're doing. Back when I was running youth activities, there's an example. It came from Norway. It's a stag, but the antler is looking an awful lot like a crescent. And there's one or two examples of one where there's a little fawn underneath its legs. And I have a soapstone mold for that one. And I was using that as thank yous for helping out the youth activities, because it is descriptive of here's this stag standing over the fawn. And there's not a lot of people out there with those, even around here. But when I needed to say a heartfelt thank you, it's here's your pin.
Absolutely. And when I think back on some of the thank yous I've received, things like that personal token from someone, a personal, I was a Ontario Kingdom Regalia minister for way too long. And I received from the Kingdom Exchequer, like it was his personal token with also the Exchequer stuff on it. And it was because I had, revamped the entire thing. And that it's on my haversack. Is it still on my haversack? Yeah. So I keep a haversack with, where's my camera?
Throwing it into the background.
Hang on. I'm going to unblur my background. You can actually see my messy craft room. But there's all kinds of different event tokens and awards, and some are personal tokens, and this is a treasure to me because I can look back at these and go, well, this was for this thing and this was for that thing. So yeah, if you have the ability to do that, absolutely brilliant.
I just wanted to toss out, we're talking about like more official volunteers, but a lot of times at an event, I'm going to call them, for lack of a better word, the unofficial volunteer.
Yep.
And when I was Baroness of Escalia, I kept some tokens, small tokens that were personal. Some were my colors. Horses are big with me, so I had some horse pins. And one time I gave that to someone who I just noticed doing, and it was at Penzic, noticed doing some things around the camp, and walked up and said, thank you for, that just makes it easier for all the rest of us. And they broke into tears.
Yeah.
And I was like, and another time I noticed a woman who seemed to have collected a large number of kids at one of our Coronet events. And, she didn't push those kids that were not hers away. She had small children, others joined in, and she was just entertaining them. And again, I just gave her a personal token and said, thank you.
Yep.
This is making it easier for a lot of us, a lot of people that have small children. And I just wanted you to know it's not unnoticed.
It is, and it really is a small, you think of it as a small token, but it's absolutely meaningful. I don't have them anymore, but there was a point where I had a ton of like really simple silver, they weren't real silver, or they were, crap silver, twisted rings. They were, you can buy them by the gross from, and they're nothing. They're, $20 for a gross of them or something like that. But there is something amazing about seeing somebody picking up trash from the side of the road and walking up to them and giving them a ring off of your finger and saying, thank you. Right. And that's the sort of stuff that people don't think about. Like it really is. I just praise your volunteers, support them, love them, give them sunscreen. Like,
so, and weather is both directions, right? You were talking about like drinks and ice water and whatnot for folks at California events.
Yeah.
I sat gate at Ursulmus one year because
that is
in my group that had gone there, and I just they announced, hey, we're looking for gate volunteers. I'm like, hey, I got that skill set, I can do that. So I went over there and I sat gate. They gave us soup. They had like cookies. They had because it's chilly in that area, in that building at that time of year. And so soup was fantastic. I wasn't quite cold, but I was just a little chilled, and it was perfect.
Yeah, Ursulmus is one of those events that you just get this pervasive chill. You're not necessarily like shivering cold, but it's just this bone chilling because it's concrete floors in January up in northern Washington, and it's just
raining.
Chill, raining. It's always raining or snowing or chunky rain or so hot hot coffee, tea, hot cocoa, something to make the volunteers experience better, whatever better may be in that regard. So consumables like food, drink, sunscreen, and I always just have, like, if I run a cancer tournament at West War every year, and I just have like a box that's got those things in it because I know we're going to be in the sun for 4 hours for this cancer tournament. And you never think about it. People are coming off of the battlefield straight to the tournament, and this because it's a cancer fundraiser. I mean, there's often a lot of emotion involved in it, and people are very dedicated and passionate about this, which means that they're not thinking of taking care of themselves. They're thinking about the job at hand. So it's my job as the sponsor of the tournament to think about them. Right? That's what you had something, Edward? Sorry, I ran right over the top of you.
Yeah, sometimes it's thank yous on an opportunistic basis. My camp produces bread at various times of the day. I bake, my son bakes. When people are walking by, they're officers or especially event stewards, ask them, hey, have you managed to have lunch yet? And if necessary, feed them. This is care and feeding of your volunteers. Send some off to the list table, send some off to the heralds.
Make sure the marshals drink water.
Offer to refill their mugs if they're out on the field in front of your tent. Come in for some shade between fights. Whatever you need to do. This is all the care and feeding stuff.
Exactly.
You can do it a little bit proactively, making sure that certain people hey, have you got an encampment this weekend, or are your people not going? Would you like to eat with us? Early on, a good friend of mine whom I camp with, she was autocrating a lot, so I was chief cook. And if you don't have to do the cooking thing, but you get fed and somebody's actually there and then this person actually needs to be sat down and forced a plate forced in front of them to actually stop.
We all know those
It's
people.
a little easier now, but you have to stop them.
Some of us are those people. And
make them eat. Because, but there's court. Look, you can miss court for 5 minutes and eat a plate of food. It's healthier, really.
Absolutely.
Sometimes that's opportunistic. Sometimes it's a call ahead of, hey, are you being fed this weekend? Okay, come on over with us. There's no commitment. Our call it anything but a household. It's actually an eating group.
Right.
That way there's no loyalties traded. So we can absorb easily. We can let people go easily. Oh, you want to go eat with them? Yeah, sure, whatever. We're not offended. But to be able to, if you happen to know somebody's household is mostly not coming, hey, do you have a place to eat?
Adopt
If not,
people.
yeah, come on over.
Yeah. Adopt
You've got a
people.
job to do. You're busy enough already.
Right, exactly. I personally am terrible about food and eating, just kind of in general. When I am event steward or head of retinue or something, I actually generally have someone that's close to me, a good close friend of mine that is my care and feeding person, because I will just go from 7 in the morning until 5 in the morning, sleep for an hour and get up and do it again. That's a lot harder now than it was 20 years ago. So it is much more important to have somebody taking care of me. And that's, that in my opinion, that's one of the parts of care and feeding of volunteers when you're in a supervisory role, is make sure that you are care and feeding of yourself, or someone is taking care of you. Because when in a supervisory role, it's important to have your wits about you and not be grumpy. And, you know, to be able to support those volunteers, you need to be able to be nice.
You need to be honest with yourself, and if you know you're not going to do it, ask somebody to do it for you.
Exactly.
And pin you down
That's
and
a
make
way
you
better
eat.
way of saying it than what I did.
Well, so I get hangry, and I admit that I get hangry. And the last time I autocrated an event, bless Claire-Elena and my household for feeding me and handling all the behind the scenes stuff. But Friday, after everything was pretty much set up and people were coming in and getting encampments up, and I wasn't really needed at that point, but I kind of had hit my wall. And I'm super grateful for the people who saw me as I was hitting meltdown stage and like shuttled me into a pavilion and were like, sit down, drink this water, eat this food, and lay down for 10 minutes. Just shush, you lay down, you know. And I needed it. I mean, and so try and watch out for your volunteers who might need the same kind of treatment. I mean, Cyrus knows I get hangry. My friends know I get hangry. But I'm like you, I'm not necessarily going to go find food. You know, if I'm busy doing a thing, food, yeah, that'll happen. I'll get to it. I'll get to
exactly.
it. Right?
But if someone, but on the same hand, if someone shoves a sandwich into my hand, then it's like, you know, a beacon has been lit, and I'm like, this is amazing, right? So yeah. So we have some people being, you know, quiet back there. Is there anybody that's not on video that has any comments or any other suggestions? Because I'm always excited about what other people do for, you know, for their care and feeding. So anybody got anything else? Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Make sure you know your volunteers well enough. So if there is any food allergies or food dislikes, kind of get an idea, because it's a shame that you have somebody, even like with your cookies, is you hand it to this group of people and they're gluten-free. And they really would like the cookies and they really appreciate you giving the cookies. But, you know, kind of know.
Yeah, it does help to kind of know your audience, as it were. And the same thing if you have a supplies, you know, a plate of whatever at gate, make sure that you have ingredients listed so that people, you know, can see what it is. Yeah, that's just, I totally agree. And yeah, it does help to know your audience. But yeah, that's.
And specific on the cookies, I did ask my Branch X checkers what kind of, the question started with, hey, what's your favorite cookie? You know, so then they could, it opened up the door for them to say, oh, I don't eat cookies, or I love chocolate chip, or I hate peanut butter, you know, whatever. And then I just kept a list, actually, so that when the reports were due at quarterly, I would pull up the list and be like, okay, you know, so-and-so hates chocolate chips, and this person loves my ginger snaps, so I'll totally just do ginger snaps for them. And, you know, I did try to keep track of that, because it's an excellent point. You don't want to make somebody sick with your attempt at generosity.
Absolutely. So, Catriona, by the way, I love ginger snaps. If you ever, you know, have a need to
All right, I can
just put that out there.
Her Scotch cookies. Yeah.
Oh, butterscotch, like
no, Scotch.
Oh, Scotch, like
Scotch.
Scotch.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like Scotch.
Scotch.
Yeah.
I know.
Straight up Scotch.
Altani, is that? I might have totally butchered that, but yeah, a hospitality table out of public eye. So your volunteers can take a breath, kick off their shoes, breathe. Absolutely. And having it, especially if like things like a public demo where your volunteers are on all the time, or, you know, they're front line, as it were. So gate, lists, herald, someplace where you're dealing with the public a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Having a place that is tucked to, behind the scenes so that you can take a breath and not be on display is, yeah, so absolutely helpful.
And somebody who's new in a role, right? I have been head of court a couple of times, and if you've got people who are new on court, there's a lot of, it's weird. It's a different kind of role that you're playing when you're on someone's court, and you may not know how to handle it. So being able to give them a safe place to go if they're overwhelmed, or a safe person to talk to if they're stressed out about something that's happened or they don't understand, and giving them gentle education instead of, I think we've all seen where volunteers got corrected on something maybe a little more abruptly than is appropriate. Especially with new volunteers, I try to be gentle, right? You don't want to, you want to be more careful with your tone of voice if somebody hasn't done the role before. You want to be careful on the way you phrase your words if somebody hasn't done that task before, because I have seen somebody who, it was in this case a herald, right? With all good intentions, they talked to a new baby field herald and said, that was fine, but you should have blah, 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 blah. And it came across really poorly to this new baby field herald who was trying, right? They had volunteered to spend part of their day out there doing field stuff, and then they felt attacked. So it's really also important in that kind of communication and care and feeding of being aware of how you're interacting with the volunteers. And I mean, somebody who's been field heralding for years might be able to take that same kind of criticism in a very different way than somebody who's a brand new baby at that role. So just kind of using that as an example of being aware of your audience, not only what are their likes and dislikes, do they like public praise or private praise, but also how are you,
how you can approach and correct if necessary. Absolutely. And yeah, and Megan, just listening, that's a really, really good point, is listen and communicate. And it helps so much in keeping volunteers and getting them to come back and do the same thing again, or do something different again. And maybe field heraldry isn't for everybody. So there are ways to approach that and say, hey, you know what, how about lists, or how about, let's tailor something that's better suited for what you're doing. Yeah.
Well, and that baby herald was doing as an audience member, right? I wasn't a herald at the time. I wasn't in an official capacity. I just happened to overhear the interaction. And that baby herald was doing fine. They maybe needed to project better, whatever. There's always room for improvement, right? No matter what we're doing, there's always something we could do better. Right. So yeah, maybe it was appropriate that some constructive feedback could have been given to that baby herald, but they were doing fine. And after that interaction, the baby herald came over to me and they're like, I'm never doing that again. And it would have been fine in that role in the future, but they were so frustrated by that interaction that they were like, forget that, I'm not going to help them again. And that's what I hate to see, right? That's not what we want.
Right.
So it's important to, try and look out for the people who are volunteering to do the stuff we all want to see done.
We want them to come back and do it again, right? Astrid, the charm tokens, like silver charm tokens, you can, if it's something, and you can find, there's a zillion different tokens out there, just a mind-boggling number of designs and sizes and everything. So something that is either representative of the event or the action or the giver, or there's so many different things. I have coins that I asked a coin maker in Ontario that I know to make specifically for helping with their cancer tournament, and they're coins that have he designed them. They're fantastic. It's got a pair of hands with a heart inside of it, and it's around the outside it says many hands make light work. And that is something that I give, and he gave me, I don't know, a couple hundred of them. And I give those to, the people that work the tournament, because you're standing out there in the sun for 4 hours to raise money for cancer. So yeah, absolutely. And Etsy is great. Rio Grande, Fire Mountain Gems. There's tons of places that you can order them online, and they're not that expensive. Like, I always often think about, what can somebody on a budget do? We don't all have, unlimited credit cards. It would be really lovely to be independently wealthy, but I'm not. So there's a lot that you can do that are inexpensive, and you buy them in bulk and they will last you forever, right? Like you get 200 little charms and you think, wow, I'm going to go through those pretty quick. And next thing you know, 5 years later, you're like, still got some left, right? So yeah, absolutely.
Some things people can make. So I posted, somebody made these fleece hats when I was an instructor at a collegium. Fleece doesn't cost much. Yeah, it's not period. But there was no way she was going to be able to afford wool. It was a university branch group, and so you go with what you can afford, right? And I love that hat. Like it's decades ago that she gave me that hat. I love that hat. So it doesn't have to be an expensive thing. She did one for every teacher. But little pouches with scrap fabric that you got from other projects. Pouches are super useful, and then it's not a big expense, because you're right. I mean, we don't all have unlimited budgets. So trying to think of something, and simple pouches are mostly a quick seam on a sewing machine. It doesn't even require like fancy sewing skills for people like me who don't have fancy sewing skills. It's something that's a kind of a doable for most people.
Absolutely. I received once a little sachet with cedar shavings in it to throw into my armor bag. And man, that helps a lot, right? And it was like, they had done potato stamps, like carved stamps out of a potato, and had their kid like do these potato stamps with kind of a logo of the event. And then it's, a couple of seams, and fill them up with some cedar shavings. And that thing lasted. It was in my armor bag for years. And it was a couple evenings of their work, and I appreciate the time and effort. And I would see that, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great event. I had so much fun doing that, right? So it's that memento. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be a heartfelt thank you and a little widget, whatever the widget may be. It's huge. Veil pins. There's so many things that can be, and it doesn't even have to be a physical thing, right? But just the heartfelt thank you and the communication is really, really key. Oh yeah, canvas bags. Love canvas.
Those are awesome bags.
Beads. Yep. As a glass bead maker, I've absolutely made, and they not all my beads are great, and some of them have a little personality, we'll say. But they're still great, and you just string them on a piece of floss, and yeah, love it. A wick for lighting lamps. As a teacher, that is brilliant. Love that idea. Oh yeah. Huh.
Very cool.
Right. And again, it's themed with the event. So teaching is lighting wicks, right? Yeah.
With a lovely little note to explain it. That's awesome.
That is fantastic. Right. And it probably took the person, how you've got, call it, 30 teachers. So that's a couple evenings worth of work. Okay. But when you're planning an event, a couple evenings worth of work is a drop in the bucket compared to what you're already doing. Right. And this is where you can talk children, spouses, friends, come on over. Well, in non-COVID times, come on over on a Sunday afternoon and we'll fire up the barbecue and we're going to crank out a bunch of these, right? That's what I did for Sport of Kings. And it was brilliant. And yes, you can farm it out. Absolutely. There's some great ideas here, guys. I love them. 10-minute warning. Fantastic. Thank you. Sorry, I'm rolling back through the notes in case the chat in case I missed anything, because I love these ideas. One of the things I did as an event steward, the farming it out. As an event steward for Sport of Kings, I totally farmed out the thank you things. I was important to me to thank the instructors. Because Sport of Kings usually has 60 or so instructors. No, I think we're probably up to 80 now. And it's a 3-day long event where there's classes from 9 in the morning until 5 at night, plus tournaments, plus like it's a juggernaut of an event. And I didn't have the bandwidth to actually make things, but my Squire sister, who is an amazingly talented artist, she's like, you know what, I will take that on for you. And she did all of these. She did block printed canvas bags and like, and all these different things. And we had a bag stuffing party, right? Where a couple of us came over and we put it on a dining room table and like assembly lined it, and the t-shirt, because the instructors get t-shirts and all these other things too, right? So we just like put them right through. And then when they checked in at gate, there was a bag, right? Here's the thank you for flying here from another kingdom and spending 10 hours teaching at an event, right? Absolutely.
You should read out that Lifesavers one. That's awesome.
Oh, they do. Yeah, wintergreen lifesavers do spark in the dark. It is totally true. I love that idea, Ness. That is brilliant. Oh, I love it. Yes, I might steal some of your ideas there. That's half of the reason that I volunteered to teach this class, is I want other people's ideas.
So, and I find that, you know, when you're making stuff in a batch, you know, it's kind of farming them out or having people come over and do barbecue party type thing. So this was court specific, but as head of court, we had designs of what we wanted the court tokens for Her Highness. And so I invited court members over, like, hey, help me sew these into the shape, and then we'll paint them together, and, you know, whatever. And not only is it something that, you know, you get to keep as like the memento, right? But it's also kind of that team building,
It's a team building, bonding sort of thing, which
so,
absolutely, I completely agree. And that goes to that's part of the care and feeding, right? Is that one of the reasons that I do so much volunteering is to make connections with people. That's how I meet people, right? That's why I do so much court and things like that. So it's, all right. Brian's about to teach a class in his room, and I just heard a staple gun. So I don't know what's going on in there. I think he's putting a banner up behind him. I hear the clicking of a staple gun. Yeah. Any other fantastic ideas out there, or things that people have done or seen, or? All right, we're out of ideas. That's it. Time to go home.
So I have a thing sort of like your haversack. This is not really quite an answer to your question, but I have I made a banner, just a simple rectangle of fabric with a little bit painted on it. And then I have sewn on there awards and site tokens, and, you know, and those little mementos, right? When people gave me a little thing, whether it was a coin of their reign, or if it was a little Fimo bead or whatever, if it had some meaning to me, I've sewn it onto that banner, and that banner is hanging up in my bedroom. And so I can see it and like still have those memories and those reflections. And so it's not really so much a, you know, what can we do, but it's a way to 5 minutes. Cool.
5 minutes.
A way to kind of keep those memories alive, and you know, that it was meaningful to me. Like you said, you know, I can look at it and go, oh, that was a great event, I had a really good time doing that thing, or oh, that was a great experience. It's nice to keep that where I can see it. And
that's a really, I actually might steal that idea, because my haversack is pretty full, and I don't really do 14th century anymore. So I don't wear my haversack. It's been hanging on my loom since I moved here 3 years ago. And I have more things that I would like to put somewhere. I'm totally going to steal that idea of making it. I'll put it up in my craft room here, and I'll be able to look at it, and I like it.
I got that idea from Mistress Sorsha Karaman. She had it up in her house, and I saw that idea and loved it, and so totally stole that idea from her. So giving credit.
Love it. I'm all about stealing ideas. Fantastic. Yeah, and thank you everybody that is chimed in with their thoughts and their ideas. Yeah, so to sum it up, a very heartfelt thank you to everyone, and give them a widget if you have a widget, but just thank your volunteers and be nice to them and give them cookies. I want cookies, by the way.
Sending virtual cookies to all of you.
You're the best, Elsie. I'll just come out and get you know, equine pony noses again. That's what I want, is more pony noses. I want to go see my mule, my best mule.
Whose mule? I think we might have to fight over that, Ula.
Oh, I'll wrestle you for that mule.
Hey, Elsie, we need a Nick fan club t-shirt. Like, get his picture and we need a t-shirt that says Nick fan club.
Oh, we really, that I can work on. That
Yeah,
I can
I would
totally.
support that plan because that is the best mule on the
He
planet.
is the best.
Love that mule. All right. If we don't have anything else, I think we are good to go. We can probably cut the recording and